So, the spoilers are out for My Hero Academia Manga Chapter 345, and let's just say that in this chapter, we do get a lot of action, but weirdly enough, we also get a lot of setup and some questionable activities that go on when it comes to certain characters, and we'll see what I'm talking about more right after this. Hey guys, how's it going? It is your boy, Manga Man Drew, and I'm here to do and cover the spoilers for My Hero Academia Manga Chapter 345. And from what we see with the spoilers in this chapter, we are diving headfirst into the actual war, going into the battles, going into who's going to be fighting whom, where people are going to be sent, and potentially how a certain character gets kidnapped. And from what we see with the spoilers, it's probably the worst case scenario for this character, as well as somehow the best case scenario for this character, and we'll get into that a little bit more. So let's dive right into the spoilers, starting off with the text spoilers, where we have the chapter begins inside one of the iron cages, showing the villains confused by the fact that they are moving. Toga is desperate and asks them to break this thing as quick as possible while thinking of Deku. So, potentially from what we see with this first line of text spoilers and what we're going to see later on, we're going to have Toga meet up with Deku, and we don't know the actual specifics of it, even with the text spoilers. From what we see towards the end, it just shows that they meet. We don't know exactly where they are meeting or how they actually were able to meet. That is probably something that we'll go into either in this chapter proper or in the next chapter, but they're setting up something happening between Toga and Deku. And from what we see with the next line of text spoilers, some of them actually manage to destroy the prisons, including Dabi, who mocks them by saying that they could only hold them for 3 seconds. Bakugo appears in front of him saying that those 3 seconds are more than enough and lets out an explosion. The heroes are confronting the villains that got loose and pushing them towards the portals. So this is something that is very interesting. Weirdly enough, Bakugo is confronting Dabi, which sort of kind of makes sense, but also this pseudo confirms an idea that I had about how this plan is going to either completely be a success or completely be a failure, and to an extent I was right. It was a mixture of both, where some of the villains are going to be sent through the portals, but some of them are going to stay here, and potentially Dabi is going to be one of the characters that stay here. Because we have in the next line of text spoilers say that the plan of simultaneously pushing them towards the portals is successful, and we see Monoma laughing once again, saying that he is the one pulling the strings. We also see a hero very similar to Crust, both in look and in quirk, dealing with one of the generals of the Liberation Front and saying that they also have a plan to deal with Shigaraki's decay, and we're going to potentially see what that plan is. And as this is all happening, the heroes then rush to enter the portals that have been assigned to each of them. Bakugo calls Deku, but before they could enter in together, Midoriya is pulled in by something that came from another portal. So we see that their plan is actually coming into fruition and that there is another plan to involve Shigaraki, which we're going to see later on in the text spoilers and hopefully in the chapter. But we also get some interesting piece of information that Deku got kidnapped. So yeah, from what we see with this text spoilers, we see that certain characters are going into certain portals. Bakugo and Deku were supposed to go into one portal, but apparently Bakugo sees that Deku gets captured and pulled in through another portal. That portal, from what we see later on in the text spoilers, seems to lead to a location where Toga is, but we don't know who actually pulled him into that portal. It could have been Toga, it could have been someone else. As well as we get potentially seeing someone that looks and acts like Crust in a world where Twice exists and could exist. Yeah, this could just be a reference to a character that has a similar quirk to Crust, or it could actually be Crust. I cannot say for certain. We have to get the actual chapters proper, as well as a few images to discern whether or not that is the case. And now we have a few more pieces of information to talk about when it comes to the text spoilers, where we apparently know the location for where Fat Gum is. Fat apparently stayed behind and is tasked by All Might to arrest any villains left with his Fat and to protect Aoyama, which is very interesting. He also instructs Monoma to return to where Aizawa is, which is most likely Central Hospital. The operation enters phase 2, and we see double page showing the heroes charged with taking care of All for One, Endeavor, Hawks, Tokoyami, Tokoyami, Mount Lady, Kamui, Pixie Bob, Tiger, Shishido, and many others. They are in Gunga Mountain. And this is very interesting because I believe that that is the mountain closest to UA, or maybe the farthest from UA, or closest to the Todoroki home. I forget where that actually is. I actually think this may be the area where they fought Gigantomachia. We'll have to get a better image of that. But we are getting confirmation of who is going to be facing All For One, and it's sort of kind of the heavy hitters. The Endeavor, Hawks being there means that his feathers are probably regrown to the point where he's able to fight. Weirdly enough, Pixie Bob and Tiger are there, so that also makes sense. Mount Lady, just because she's a giant powerhouse, so getting to potentially see these characters fighting All For One is going to be very interesting, and I wasn't really expecting some of these characters, specifically Tokoyami as well as Shishido. As we also have that happening, Endeavor apparently says that the goo quirk used by All For One is a worse version of Kurogiri's Warp Gate, and that it can only work within short distances, and it's the same quirk that they saw at Kamino, and that because it can only cover short distances, he won't be able to really use it, as well as he can't really use it on himself, and how All For One is getting what he deserves because the UA barrier improvements were made so that he probably wouldn't be able to infiltrate it or really get in. So that's something interesting that we are potentially going to see in this chapter from what we see with the spoilers. And now we're approaching towards the end of the spoilers, where we have All For One admitting that the plan is great, and that he says that splitting up the heroes at a time like this may be a little bit risky, and how he wonders if bringing All For One face to face with Tomura is really a good idea, most likely hinting to the fact that Deku got captured or was taken away. And when he says this, he also comments that Endeavor has left his youngest son in a very complicated situation. As we see on the next page, we see Shoto facing Dabi and Kamino, and Ida is also with him. So weirdly enough, we're going to have Dabi versus Shoto as well as Ida. That is a weird match, but that's actually very cool to see that, where you're going to have the two characters that have a relationship with a brother fighting someone that has a very tenuous relationship with a brother. So that's going to be cool, and see that connection in that fight. And then from the next line of text spoilers, we have a scene that cuts away, and we see an impressive double page spread of UA, which is floating on a huge piece of land and protected by a force field. A portal opens and Shigaraki is transported there, where Best Genius was waiting for him. Bakugo then appears and says that there is a problem. Deku has been taken away. So from what it seems, Shigaraki is going to be facing off against Best Genius, which that was also unexpected, and potentially Bakugo is there as well. It's very unclear on where Bakugo is, but here's the confirmation that Deku is no longer in this facility or in the vicinity of where Bakugo is. And for the most part, no one really knows where he is. And with the last lines of the text spoilers, it say that the last page shows that he has been pulled in reference to Deku, by Toga, and is standing next to Uraraka, Tsuyu, and Gang Orca in a place that looks like a water show stadium. Deku doesn't understand why Danger Sense hasn't activated, and Toga has a serene expression as the chapter is apparently ending. So this is going to be a very interesting chapter. I think I would need a lot more context, the translations, the images, to truly understand what this chapter is going to be about. Obviously, we're going to have a fair amount of action if these spoilers are correct, as well as we're going to see the certain matchups between the characters. We could potentially theorize on how those matchups are going to go, whether or not the characters are going to be defeated in those situations, or who could potentially, bite the bucket. So there's a lot that can be gleaned from this. We just have to wait more for the actual chapter to come out. But from what we see with the spoilers, this is going to be a very good chapter of My Hero Academia, mainly because it's going to be a lot of action, as well as some setup for what's going to be happening with Deku, with Shigaraki, with Dabi, with All For One, and their apparent fights that we're going to see. So yeah, that's all the spoilers that we have right now. Hopefully you were able to enjoy them. Hopefully this will convince you to actually read the next chapter coming up and not just rely on the spoilers. Always read the official release. Not sure if I've said that in a while, but always support the official release if you can. It's free on Sundays. Go read it. I will obviously be doing my review of this chapter on Friday when the early translations are out, but I always advise you to go read the official release on Sunday. So yeah, that's all I really have to say about the spoilers. Hopefully you enjoyed them. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. And if you did, why not subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you can be notified whenever I upload more spoiler videos on My Hero Academia. Hopefully you'll be able to do all that cool jazz, and I will catch you in my next video. Goodbye! Fire!